So we're going to watch a video here of cinnamon and spice. And as we begin, let me just remind everyone, go ahead and ask any questions you may have by typing them into the Q&A, or if you're watching us on Facebook, right into the live stream. So here are cinnamon and spice, and I believe that we have Pam on the line to talk to us about them. So hi, Pam.
Hi, Katie.
Can you tell us a little bit about these two cockatiels? They're very cute.
They are very cute. On your right is a gray cockatiel. Her name is Cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
Very definitely a female. She has laid eggs for us in the past. Now in the foreground, you see a pied cockatiel.
Mm-hmm.
Name is Spice. And he's got just a beautiful coloration around his head, as you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now he's getting away from the camera ever so slightly and giving us a view of his back. So you can see why he's called a pied. He's got that different, white and yellow mottled into his dark gray there, as opposed to Cinnamon, who has the more normal gray coloration, and he's basically telling her, I want to sit right there, get out of my way.
That is a thing that I feel like cockatiels do a lot of. They're kind of like the jokes about old married couples who bicker all the time but wouldn't know what to do without each other. I feel like
yeah, and they are definitely bonded. There was
they are. Okay.
Yeah, and there was a time after I got them from the vet clinic where there was a concern that Cinnamon was guarding the food bowls and not letting Spice eat. And so I housed them in two cages next to each other just so I could, make sure that Spice was getting enough to eat and monitor the situation. And throughout the whole day, they would sit in the portion of their cages that were the closest to each other. Yep, exactly. And be calling back and forth to each other, not in panic because they could see each other, but just contact calls back and forth. And
hey, this is weird. How is it over there on that side of the bars?
Right. So I recently moved them together into the same cage with a special food bowl setup to deal with the food guarding situation. And also am watching how they take food from their bowls so that I don't get inadvertently surprised by somebody being starved to death.
Yeah.
And they've reverted to their normal, married couple behaviors. And what's very sweet is that at night when they go to bed, they have a favorite sleeping spot, and it's on the rightmost wooden perch that you see now. Spice will be, sorry, fire engine running by.
That's okay.
And that go. So Spice will be at the far end of that perch, and Cinnamon will be pointed in the other direction. So Spice is facing forward, Cinnamon is facing backward with their left wings touching each other. She's not pushing him, they're just touching, they're there with each other, and it's so sweet. And they do that night after night after night. It is their sleeping positions, their version of spooning or something.
So it looks like they have a variety of chewy materials in their toys here.
Yes.
What kinds of toys and activities do they like during the day?
They actually don't interact with toys so much as they interact with each other. To the extent that they interact with toys, there's the low-tech toy that I haven't pictured here. It's a folded envelope that came in the mail. Tossed out the innards, folded the envelope, stuck it through the cages, and they enjoy shredding that. They also have some toys that are specifically shreddy. You can see that they've already taken, 2 or 3 notches off of the leather strip toy with the chewy things that are poking.
Yeah, and I see that the ones that are on there are looking pretty frayed.
They're
On the,
used.
and
It's well
like
loved.
we have nice neat knots on the side that's facing us,
Yeah.
and it looks like the rope is very shredded up on the other side.
Yeah. So they're working at it. Yep. And
So
then
we're getting
yeah.
a couple audience questions here.
Yes.
How old are they? And do they have any particular medical issues, especially with the egg laying?
So in order, they are 13 and 11 years old, roughly speaking. So that for a cockatiel, that's about midlife. We've had cockatiels that have been rescued by Mickaboo that were in their early 30s. And that's like saying 100 for a person, right? Our life expectancy is 80, that's an average. But we all know people who have gone over, and we all know people, sadly, who have fallen under that. You know, so 30 is at the way far end of things. But these guys are, I would call them, you know, midlife, roughly. Lots of good years ahead of them. In terms of medical issues, we're past needing daily anything. So we don't have any active medical intervention underway. So now we're at the normal, you know, watch your birds, look for the normal signs of illness, etc. And in particular with behavioral issues, again, making sure that the male, who's on our left here, is getting enough food and is not being herded away from the food bowls by the female. And that's through direct observation is the easiest way that I can do that. And there's also weighing the bird every now and again to make sure that they're not going dangerously below their optimum weight.
Yeah, weighing birds is a fantastic way to have a preview of any health issues that may be coming before, while you can still solve them.
Yes, yes, yes.
Highly recommended.
Yeah. There's the question about the egg laying, and it's an interesting question because I caught these 2 birds within a few days of moving them to a new environment, i.e. this cage. I caught them what I call stack dancing, which is, you know, them having a fling at it, as it were. And you can kind of tell because the vocalizations that come from them are markedly different than their normal contact calls or their normal alarm calls. It's very different. So when I heard that, I knew what it was and said, okay, stop doing that now. And so they did that a couple times in a row. And I think that's because I was so concerned about them getting enough to eat after I changed their environment entirely. I went from them being in the basement to being up on the living quarters, much more light, same cage instead of 2 cages, that I gave them, you know, the millet sprig that you see hanging there after they were eating, because initially for the first several hours they were not eating. And I was, you know, so dancing between a couple of different issues. So after I saw them stack dancing and confirming that they were very comfortable in their new place, you know, took the millet away, went back to the pellet diet, specifically Nutrien, that they were on, and, you know, watched them carefully to make sure that my strategy about the food bowls was leaving enough food for Spice.
Got it. I understand that Cinnamon and Spice have been with Mickaboo for quite some time, and that they've had other foster homes previous. Can you tell us about how they came to Mickaboo?
Yes, I understand that they were part of an aviary rescue about 10 years ago. And there were approximately 16 cockatiels in an aviary. The homeowner was selling their residence, and they called Mickaboo and said something very much like, if you don't come and get these birds, you know, today, tomorrow, it was very short notice, we're going to let them go. We're going to open up the aviary door and let the birds fend for themselves, which is pretty close to being a death sentence.
But I was about to say that's a death sentence. Yeah,
I
between
mean,
this
the
is not
birds,
their native environment,
right?
anything to eat. If they survive being hawk food, they're going to starve to death.
Yeah, I mean, because they had no training in how to find their own food. You know, in the aviary, they were given food. How do you find your own food in the wild? Don't know how to look for predators or how to deal with predators. So, you know, if anybody is out there thinking that opening a door or a window to release your bird, the saying that we have is that they're not flying free, they're becoming free food, as you say, you know, for the hawks and eagles and whatnot, other predators out there.
Yeah, I think it's not always intuitive to people because you walk out your door and you see birds everywhere, but those are birds that are native or naturalized to this area, that have a flock, that have got the muscle tone, that so many things that our pet birds do not have.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you were to plunk me, you know, out of my very comfortable home here into the middle of, you know, the wilderness, and said, you know, go for it. I know what's safe to eat, what's not safe to eat. I might survive for a while if I can find some running water, but that's, you know, not gonna be a good situation after a while.
Well, we're about to move on to meet our last pair of birds, but before we do that, are there any last things you'd like to tell us about Cinnamon and Spice?
They are a pair of very nice low-key birds. They're wonderful to have for my Zoom calls because they are not very loud and they provide a little bit of interesting background for people who see them, as opposed to the conures that you're going to come up to next, which are a little bit more vocally present, I'll call it.
They are.
I mean, these folks that we have here, Cinnamon and Spice, they will definitely remind me in the morning that they want their breakfast. And in the evening, they will remind me that they want their dinner. They get meal fed twice a day. And in the interim, if there's an earthquake, because we do get shaken up here a little bit now and again, they are great earthquake monitors. Even for the ones that I don't feel, but you know, I'll turn on the radio and you know, USGS says that there's a 4.1 somewhere in the East Bay, perhaps, and they found it. I think. So they're quite good birds, relatively low maintenance, and you know, beautiful to watch and have in one's home. Oh,
and Spice is doing the little heart wings thing there that male cockatiels do. That's so cute. Yeah. Oh. Well, that's a really sweet image to leave you three on. So thank you so much, Pam.